Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. Hi, Kari.
Hi, Lisa.
So this whole month of July, we decided to do fun, easy, lighthearted topics, and really just, in some ways, I don't want to say get back to the core of what we thought this pod was going to be like, because we were always going to talk about what was important to women our age and younger and so forth. But at the beginning, I felt like we had a lot of these little sort of fun one-offs, and then we just started getting really serious. And so I'm glad we're taking the summer to be fun.
I know what's interesting is we were really keen on like no fucks left. This is just going to be and that made us laugh because we were in such a great place, traveling together again after COVID. Like it was just so great, right? And
Yeah.
and I think what's true is what's unfolded is exactly it. Like we've allowed everything,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's been a lot of everything, a lot of ups and downs, and hopefully that reflects people who listen, right? Like we have all these great intentions, and we haven't not kept them, but we've also included a lot of everything, and so it is kind of nice to balance it out with some fun. We do love to banter. We're both into pop culture so much and the same
Yeah.
kinds of genres generally, and we can influence each other into genres we didn't think we liked, and I think that's
True.
fun too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
it's
that's a
it's
really good point, though. I had not really thought about that, but that's true. When you and I were first discussing this, we were on one of the retreats with the Health Coach
yeah,
Institute, which was always just so high vibe. I mean, we were just like probably just the happiest, in the happiest place, really,
yeah.
and so jazzed. And then, of course, everything when you start something, it's just honeymoon period. And not that it's not still. I mean, obviously, this is Thursdays is still our favorite day of the week because we record and all those things. But yeah, you're right. Life gets lifey, and that is, and we are following the path as things come up. It feels important to talk about. We certainly have been reflected from our listeners that the one about chronic pain, I know people sent to other people that were dealing with chronic pain. Of course, you're dealing with chronic pain at this point. So, I mean, we are following the flow as it shows up, which is exactly right. And it feels fun just to talk about books and TV shows. And this week, all about movies.
That's true. That's true. And I will say this too. This is what I love about being 55, which you are almost, but not
Almost,
yet. Um,
actually, maybe
is
really close by the time this episode comes
Yeah, by the
out.
time this episode is I like the no fucks part is like I won't stick to something just because we said it. Like
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
won't either. I don't think you ever have. I don't know. But I think like our generation of women, we're conditioned to be like, press on and
Yeah.
put on a smiling face and all that. And we have this plan, let's stick to the plan. And I think it's unfolding genuinely.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that. So
You're right.
yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Anyway,
So,
but yeah,
yes.
movies.
So this week it's movies, and then next week we're going to talk about music because again, that's so important, obviously to us, but and to this pod, it's been such a big piece of all this. So I want to talk about music next week. But let's start with movies. So let's start easy peasy. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Oh, that's not easy peasy.
Sorry.
Okay. Can you go first? Because
Sure.
I'm like in a tennis match in my head about it. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I would say hands down, whenever anybody asks me that question, it's always Greece. Always Greece.
Mm.
What's interesting about Greece for me, of course, it came out. I'm gonna say the summer before we went into the fourth grade. And the reason I remember that so specifically is because it was the summer I changed schools. So we had moved from Kettering, Ohio to Centerville, Ohio. So I had to so I went to a new Catholic school. And so I was very much in my mind, I was Sandy, although I always wanted to be Rizzo, still want to be Rizzo, always wanted to be Rizzo. Um, but it was that sense of like coming to a new school, and
Yeah.
I did have that sort of moment in time of feeling very goody I had a Holly Hobby lunchbox. If
Oh,
any of my incarnation peeps are listening, and I know a few do, I had a Holly Hobby lunchbox, and that was not okay because everybody brought bag lunches. So I learned very quickly to get rid of my Holly Hobby lunchbox. But it was that whole
That's sad.
sense that, so that's part of why I've always loved Grease. Um, I also, my parents were big fans of the play as it became a musical. So if anybody doesn't know, the play was originally set in Chicago. If you see the stage play before it became a musical, it's pretty gritty. Um, and then it became a musical, and I saw it like 3 times at the dinner theater in Kettering. It's called the Kenley Players, and it always had like sort of A, B+ stars come through. So I saw Barry Williams play Kaniki, Gary Sandy from WKRP play Danny, and Lorna Loft, who is the other daughter of Judy Garland, she played Marty, I think. So like I just had that when Grease came out as a movie, I already knew it because I had seen it so many times as a little kid at Kenley Players. And then, fast forward to like life and you start to understand it as you get older. I truly thought that when Kaniki broke his 75-cent insurance policy, I thought it was literally a little piece of paper insurance policy. I didn't know it was a condom. Like it's just one of those it's one of those movies
That's
that
so
is
cute.
so
That's so
subversive.
cute.
Like when you watch it as an adult, you think, oh my God, no kid should ever watch that. But I had no
I
clue in
mean,
the
that
fourth
is the
grade.
majority of so much material out there that
Yeah.
so much of it is entertaining the parents and it's going whoop
Yeah.
right over the kids. That I wasn't allowed to see it, and like that just built it up more for me. And then
Yeah.
finally we the only people I knew from Southern California who would spend a month in Rochester every summer with all their cousins and grandparents. And we were in Rochester, and my mom decided, like, okay, I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm gonna drop you off. But like for so long, she wouldn't let us go. And people were getting, do you remember those like really nice color photo books from
Oh, I
movies
had it.
afterwards?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh
No,
yeah.
I owned it.
So
Yep.
I like already felt like I'd seen it, but like I remember sitting in the theater watching it and like my whole body tingling, just like so excited. And
Yeah.
the most racy thing I could remember was the three guys mooning the camera, because those other things you just mentioned went over my head. Um, so like the three guys mooning, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
because I was, yeah, fourth grade or something. Oh, I loved that movie. That
Yeah. I
that
mean,
is a
I want
good
to
one.
say I could be wrong, but I feel like it was a movie that I used to say this, and somehow this doesn't seem right to me anymore, but I used to say I felt like I saw it in the theater like 15 times. Like I just and now you would never do that because it's too expensive. But back then, of course, it was like $1 to have it to go to a movie. Um, but I saw that in the theater so many. It's no question the movie I've seen the most times. And my kids love it. And Charlotte went as a pink lady one year for Halloween. Like it's just and Stockard Channing as Rizzo. I mean, you just
Yes.
can't. And I've seen Grease too. Cool Writer's a fine song, but the rest of Grease 2 is a shit show. And I
It's
love
so
Michelle
bad.
Pfeiffer, but Jesus Christ, that is so bad.
So bad.
And then we moved to LA, right? And Venice High School is Rydell, so I have plenty of
Yeah.
pictures with Charlotte and I in front of that. It still has the thing out front, the statue, and then Hollywood High is the track. So
Oh.
long distance running, cross country running. Yeah. So we could go there all the time because we park right by there downtown, or I mean down in Hollywood. And then there's some other school that is the inside that's here in LA. So it's actually filmed 3 different high schools. The outside's
Uh,
at Venice, and Hollywood High's the gym or the track, and then the gym and internal places are some other high school that I can't remember. So
hmm.
yeah, I never ever ever get sick of seeing the sights from Greece either. So that was really fun for me.
Well, that's a good one. That's definitely, my kids would probably, I'm not kidding, say that's one of my mom's favorites, because I've always, like I had them watch it when they were young, but I
Yep.
don't think that was top of mind. But I was thinking it was like more modern and more ancient even than that for me was Sound of Music.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we watched it once a year, like, when it came on TV
Which was
right
like
around the
around
holidays.
Easter, right? Or
Thanksgiving, I think.
Christmas.
Oh, maybe
Oh
you're probably right. I don't know. It was one of the holidays,
yeah.
and we would watch it, and I just loved it. Like I loved the Like, it was so compelling, and I was like at a very young age a little too fascinated with World War II, like, just like so
Mm,
struck by it all the time, and those stories, and I don't know if it was because of Sound of Music, or Sound of Music appealed to me because of that in the background.
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
but just I love Julie Andrews so much because I,
yeah.
I mean I love Mary Poppins,
Oh
I
yeah.
loved anything like, so yeah, musicals. You and I are starting with the musicals. It's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Mary Poppins when I was little, I mean, that was my go-to. When I was little, I wanted to be Mary Poppins. I wanted fingerless gloves. I wanted the big hat there. We have pictures. Maybe I can find it for for our social medias. I would get up every Saturday morning and I would put a paper plate on my head and then tie it
Oh
with a
my
ribbon.
gosh. Oh my gosh, you got to find that picture.
I'll try to find that picture. Yeah, so Mary
Well,
Poppins was an early one, but I like my chosen, like I remember versus like, I was probably taken to Mary
well,
Poppins and fell in love with it.
also, like, I liked some music. I was starting to learn piano,
Oh yeah.
and my dad looked like Christopher Plummer when he was
Oh,
younger,
yeah, I can imagine
and
that.
he would like sing along to Edelweiss, and so there was that whole family
I was gonna
dynamic
say, I
part of
feel like you
it
have
I
the
love.
family dynamic of that
And
too. Not as
well,
many kids,
not
but
as many kids, but yeah, cousins and stuff. And my mom's whole family, I mean, my dad's too, but like very musical. There was always a lot
mm.
of like gathering around. My grandmother was a piano player, and grandfather was, he'd play the snare drum with his tongue out. Like, it was so cute. But when Harry and Mary came to town, everyone would gather around them and stay up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. It just like all my parents' friends. So music was a big part of it, and we used to love that music as well, from that movie. But yeah, I also, when I studied abroad my junior year, I went to Salzburg with a friend, and she
Mm.
was equally into it, and we like went to see all those scenes from the movie, and it is absolutely stunning. And if you ever watch it
Mm.
again, the thing that old movies did, Gone with the Wind, like all those old movies, like there's so many credits at the beginning,
Yes.
but there's beautiful scenery. And we just don't have the attention span for that anymore. But like if you watch it, it's pretty breathtaking to watch, like just what's happening there with all the bells and the steeples and turrets, and then like they go out into the mountains. It's pretty. I don't know. So that just is a good feeling kind of thing, and surprisingly, the Carol boys also like it. So when I showed it to them, they were like, "I don't want to watch this. I don't want to watch this," and then they were like, "That was good." So it's a cute
First
memory.
first movie to not have credits, and then it kind of just stayed that way, was Star Wars.
I
Star
know.
Wars was the first because
It's
of the
it's like
the
in a galaxy
crawl.
far, far away. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I know, and I'm grateful for that, because now when we go to watch an old movie, I'm like, oh my
I
gosh.
know. Speed it up, buddy. Yeah, totally. What was the first movie that ever made you cry?
Oh, E.T.
Me too. I bawled
But
at
but
ET.
nobody cried harder than my big brother. That was so surprising and adorable. Yeah,
Oh,
he was like sitting in the theater. My brother's a big softie. That was so sweet. Yeah, and
yeah.
Dances with Wolves. I remember that he cried at that too. He was just so sad.
Interesting.
Yeah, but
The next
we
movie I remember
cry.
crying at was Color Purple. Color
Oh,
Purple made me bawl at the end. Steven
yeah,
Spielberg's got away because Schindler's List too. I mean, that ending of Schindler's List when I should have sold my ring, and then when they go and do the rocks on
yeah,
his grave, which of course you were with us at Cabaret
yes.
here when they did that at Vapa, which was a cool experience. Yeah, Steven Spielberg's got a way of pulling on the old heartstrings for sure.
He does. He does. He's really good at that.
Yeah.
um, I. It's funny. What was the first movie I cried at? I mean, I right away these two memories came back, and it wasn't me. I was babysitting my cousin, and my aunt made her, like, she came home and made her go to bed right in the middle of watching Frosty the Snowman, like right after he'd melted. Sorry, anyone. I hope it's not a spoiler. And and my mom was coming to pick me up because I was a young babysitter, and my mom and I were like, "Let her watch the end." Like, she was inconsolable. Like, she was.
Yeah.
And then also, when my sister's family and my family were at a beach house together, that we watched Where the Wild Things Are. Now, I remember
Mm.
crying reading that book when my mom was reading the book to me. Like, I remember that Miles sobbed so hard in that movie when they had to say goodbye to each other, him and his friend, and he was inconsolable. Like it was for days. Like, he had to sleep with me. He was so sad and like, And so it's funny when you said that. I have these memories of them, and like I'm blocking out my own. But I do remember ET like needing a lot of tissue and just being surprised how sad I was.
Yeah, no, E.T. was absolutely the first movie I cried at. It's the funny, we were talking to Liam this weekend. The first time he ever cried at a movie was when Apollo Creed died in Rocky 2.
Oh yeah.
I think I was at work at the time. I was working for Weight Watchers, so a lot of times they'd watch movies and stuff while I was working. But I remember Darren being like, Liam was inconsolable. He just lost his shit because Rocky and Apollo become friends, and so then yeah, I think it's Rocky 2, maybe it's Rocky 3, but whatever. Yeah, he just lost his collective shit when Apollo
Oh,
died.
I was gonna say I thought it was three.
It might be
Yeah.
3 with Mr. T. It's the
Yeah.
beginning of it, and then Rocky decides to fight him. Is that right, or is that the
Right.
Russian? I don't know.
Right.
Whatever. When Apollo dies, he lost his shit. So,
Yeah.
what other movies have been impactful for you?
Um. Oh, God, I don't. I've never discussed this with you, so it's fine to discuss this on air because I think that there's such a backlash for people loving it so much. But I really did honestly on my own love Shawshank Redemption. Like I loved it. I just
Why is
um
there a backlash? I don't know about a
I don't
backlash.
know. I feel like people may like I feel like people think it gets too much attention. Maybe I don't know. But
Hmm.
at the time, I was living in New Orleans and.
Mm.
Um, and I was living among Southerners who were pretty insulted by Forrest Gump. And that was
Oh,
interesting to me because I had loved Forrest Gump. I thought it was
yep, yep.
great. It was fun. It was interesting. Like I loved Sally Field in it. But to be around Southerners who were like, that movie just made us all look like idiots. And it was interesting, right?
Yeah.
And black and white people, like they were both like, this isn't so maybe I was tainted. I still liked it, but when he got Best Actor, I was like, Morgan Freeman should have got Best Actor. Like I was really, like we came out of that movie just really, really moved. And ever
Mm.
since then, if it's one of those movies, that one and Usual Suspects, those are two movies that I will stop what I'm doing and watch, even if it's like 10 minutes left. Like I just love those
Interesting.
movies. I don't know. But yeah, I remember that had an impact. I'm trying to think a little bit younger than that. Um, because I can get it, like I get really deeply affected by books because of what I imagine. And then when I go to movies and I'm around a bunch of people in the theater, sometimes I'm having a lot of trouble not feeling what they're feeling, that sometimes I don't feel it until I walk out.
That's your projector.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
So sometimes I have much bigger responses when I'm watching them at home.
That makes sense to me. Yeah. Yeah.
You keep
Um,
talking though, because I'm sure. Oh, the movie Up.
oh
Did you ever
yeah,
see that?
I
Oh,
did. I did.
that
It's funny.
I
That one
sobbed.
didn't. I saw that with Liam and a friend of his, Jack Casey, and I remember we all three laughed, just kind of like meh. We wanted to be more affected by it, and that happens sometimes where I think I'm going to go in and just be like, oh, and then it just doesn't hit the way I want it to. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't even know that I would recommend it. Like
Yeah,
there's like cute, funny parts to it because visually it's just so
it's
sweet.
gorgeous. Yeah.
That like my dog Ozzy reminds me of the dogs. Like I was hiding under your porch because I love you.
Yeah.
That is so.
Yeah.
And the concept visually is so beautiful, but I can't even tell you the rest of it other than I sobbed. So I don't
Yeah.
know how good it was. I just
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
it got me. Um, yeah, it got me.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah, again, I'm trying to chronologically go through my life, and so I think the next, obviously I said Color Purple. That also, I have not watched. I don't. I Is the one new one out? Yeah, the new one's out. I haven't seen the musical yet, although I probably would because I hear that's so fantastic. But the original, I think is just a fantastic movie. Yeah, I've already said it, but Schindler's List was because I'm like you. I
Mhm.
mean, there's something that tells me I had a past life in World War II, and Darren as well because he is very well versed on World War II. But Yeah, we saw Schindler's List 3 times in the theater, which is kind of weird because that's not a like that's such an intense movie, but um I just think that movie is fantastic. And then I named Liam after Liam Neeson. Huge, became a huge crush on Ray Fiennes. Got to see him in Hamlet and the night I got
Mm,
engaged. So I mean, there's a lot sort of wrapped up in that. Um, but then I didn't see it for years. I think we bought the DVD when it came out for its 10th anniversary. And then I remember when the kids got older, and it's been in the last 7 years. I sat down one day to watch it with Liam because I thought, like, okay, it's an important movie. I want you to see it. Literally the candle lights and I start bawling. And Liam just looked at me and he was like, nope, we're not watching this right now. And I was like, you're right, I can't. Because there's something different about watching it with your kids,
yeah.
to not that they didn't already know about the Holocaust. I mean, obviously they know all about that stuff, but that it's just to watch all that with I have since watched it with Charlotte and Liam, but it took me a while for sure
Yeah.
to watch that with them.
Oh, yeah. Movies. Okay, so I was just thinking of a couple that affected me that, were like, whoa. Um, and I just wrote them down. Dead Poet Society. I think I was in high school when
Yeah,
I watched that. And for one, that was one of the first serious roles I saw Robin Williams do,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so beautifully.
yeah.
But also, I had been, recently affected by suicide, and
Mm,
so it really hit me.
I
Sorry,
bet.
spoilers. We should put spoiler alert on this, but if you haven't seen that, come on. Um, you're probably not gonna. Um, that was so beautifully done, and it was such an interesting time because I watched it at a time where you are coming of age and realizing that parents and grown-ups aren't perfect, and they're
Yeah,
doing the best they can, and they like out of great intentions are doing harm sometimes.
yeah.
And that was that was my takeaway from it. There was a lot of takeaways from that, but that was dark in a way that was helpful for me for growing up, right? To like look at
Mm.
things differently and see things differently. That's definitely one that I was like, whoa, dang. Um, Brokeback Mountain.
Oh
I
yeah, that's a
cried
good one.
so hard at that. I was blown away by the acting, all the acting,
Yeah.
like all four of the main characters, and just so like thrilled that to see big name actors do something so like it wasn't like the big movies we had seen up until then. Like there wasn't like a
Right.
ton of mainstream films that were about like a really romantic gay relationship like
Yeah.
that. And I'm so glad there's been so many since. But for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
that was so powerful, and I was a big fan of Heath Ledger, so that was
Mm.
one. But the one that keeps standing out to me, and I know I'm jumping around in time, but is Life is Beautiful.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
my God, too. That
So
that
good.
just broke me wide open.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I can say why now, but I don't think I could articulate it then. I couldn't understand how I loved a movie that was so like but it's because of the joy and the laughter and with that backdrop. It was just
Yeah.
and then his response when he won the Oscar was like, whoa, everything about it was just like soul bursting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's funny. I have not watched Life is Beautiful in a while. I think we brought it up because when we saw, oh, shoot, now I'm going to forget the name. It was on to but the movie that came out that was up for an Oscar that's about the camp, the house that's next to Auschwitz, gone from my head. We saw that movie in the theater and then we came home to watch Schindler's List because that was a really great movie as well. But it was like, okay, let's look at the Holocaust from different sort of angles. But Life is Beautiful, that's a good one. That we should try to crank that one back up
Mm.
because I have not seen that in a while. Are there any movies that you think, did I really see that? Did that movie really exist?
That's funny. I feel like you just teed that up for me. Yes, Xanadu. and, and Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club
Oh
Band. Like
yeah, I
with
know. It's like a
I
fever dream.
literally, I remember, yes, my friend Colleen does my lashes. She laughs. She almost fell out of her chair once because I was like, "Do you ever feel like?" And I named those two movies. Do you ever feel like you need to just go Google and make sure they actually existed, or did you like imagine that? Like, did you just dream that up? And she laughed so hard because it's like, did I just spend my time watching that? Like, what was that?
Yeah.
And then I try to remember it because I remember liking aspects of them. They certainly were colorful and entertaining, as was some other movie that pops out at that time too, which is Boogie Nights with Linda Blair. Like they're movies I remember seeing and then wondering if I imagined them.
That's so funny. Yeah, Sergeant Pepper for sure. Xanadu, I think I actively went to see because that was, sort of one of the
Living
follow-ups to
Angel.
Grease,
Sure.
for Olivia Newton-John. Sergeant Pepper, though, I remember it's like so burned it. While it feels like a fever dream, it's also burned into my memory. I was at my house in Centerville, and I think I was home alone, and it was on television, and I was just I love Sergeant Pepper. Like that's one of my earliest memories of listening, certainly listening to the Beatles, but records in general because my mom owned it. And so I knew the record so well. My sister and I had acted it out all these times in the basement. And so when I saw the movie with the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton and Aerosmith and of course it's not just Sergeant Pepper, right? Like there's all these other songs
George
that they bring
Burns.
in. Who?
George Burns.
George Burns, Steve Martin was Maxwell's hammer. Like I just remember being like, this is so weird, and I
It's
did
so
not
weird.
like it. And I think we tried to watch it again recently, like when the kids were little, and I was like, yeah, I can't do this. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's another one that I
I
thought I
think
loved. Chitty Chitty
uh,
Bang Bang's horrible, so
yo,
boring.
so many movies do not age well either. That's
No,
for
God, no.
sure.
Uh-uh.
Like 16 Candles is one of those movies that just
I'll
such the
watch it
music's
still.
great and it's got so like our
It's
kids
very
couldn't get
problematic.
through 10 minutes of it without
Yeah.
like condemning so many things about it and being like, what?
I mean, a lot, and
Yeah.
a lot of the actors of Molly Ringwald in particular has talked a lot about, the John Hughes movies. They're so iconic in our growing up. And I still love them and I will still watch all of them. But I admit, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a perfect example of what was unfortunately okay at that time. None of us
Right.
flinched at any of that stuff back then,
Right.
but when you know better, you do better. But any of that stuff, I'm still gonna watch. We watched St. Elmo's Fire recently. I know that's not John Hughes, but like all that Brat Pack stuff,
I watched that recently too, and Miles ended up watching some with me, and he was cracking up at some of the cheesy lines, but it was so fun.
we tried to watch
Um,
About Last Night recently. Oh my God, could not get through like
well,
10
I know
minutes of
it's too
that.
bad because there's some great shots of Chicago, but it
I
is
know,
cheesy.
but geez, John or James Belushi's character, I was just like, oh my God, I cannot
Elizabeth
with that
Perkins too.
guy.
She's pretty
Yes,
hateable in that. She's
yeah,
pretty hateable.
totally.
The other two, they were cute.
Yeah,
um, but like silly premise. I was thinking, I think you and I probably we've discussed this before, but I'm really proud of like I feel like I'm batting 1,000. That's good, right? Yeah, batting 1,000
yeah.
with introducing my kids to movies.
Mm,
Um, and like everything that I've ever suggested they watch, they loved, including like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and
yeah.
but like old Oscar, like Oh Brother Where Art Thou or anything.
Mm,
So they will take movie recommendations from me, which is great, and then I take them from them now, right?
yeah.
But my kids' favorite, like Miles and Peter in particular, their absolute favorite movie, and they love his whole genre, is they love Fantastic Mr. Fox. And they like
Mm,
Wes Anderson a lot, but they love Fantastic Mr. Fox.
yeah.
And I like it a lot. It's not my favorite, but I love how much they get into film, and
Yeah,
how
that's
much they
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, and
And
I
I
mean,
really
obviously, we live in a house where movies have always been important
right.
to Darren as a writer, and we still go see movies in the theater quite a bit. We were happy to see yesterday that Sony bought Alamo Drafthouse because that we heard they weren't doing very well, and we love Alamo. It's our favorite place to go see movies at. So yeah, it's you said this last week, like what's going to be the Barbenheimer, and I just don't know that there's going to be one this summer because it just doesn't. And Darren pointed out, I had forgotten, part of the reason is because of the writer's strike. I mean, that went on all last summer. And so maybe next summer we're going to have some more blockbusters. But so far, the things that, and it is tied to, if something's going to come out on streaming, if there's a movie we want to see in the theater, we will go see it in the theater. But if it's a movie that we're like, oh, we want to see that, but we're not going to spend $20, just to get in, let alone popcorn and all the things, we will wait for streaming because it comes so quickly, you know. That now the opposite of that, which is interesting, is, and this was kind of what one of the reasons I was like, let's talk about movies, is I have watched a couple movies that on the face of it do not look like me at all, which is Godzilla -1. Oh my God. So good.
I've heard that. I
Oh,
really want to go see it.
unbelievable. Darren saw it in the theater originally in color, and then it came out for just a week in black and white. And so he went back and saw it in black and white. And then he came home, and just with his excitement around it, and he was like, and this is true, Godzilla's a character. It is not the main part of this movie. It is an amazing movie. Like, the story is more than Godzilla. And so I was like, yeah, I'm down. And then it, won the Oscar, and then it did not come out on video, which was so unusual. I thought I'd get it for him for Christmas. Like, I was super excited. And then out of the blue last week, or a week or two ago, it just showed up on Netflix, like with no fanfare.
Wow.
And so we have a little movie room here in our building. So we took our computer down and hooked it in so I could see it on the big screen. And it's incredible. It is so, so good. So as somebody who does not identify as someone who would ever watch a Godzilla movie or horror or any of that stuff
Yeah.
actively, it is phenomenal. Really
That's
good
awesome.
story. Yeah. Highly, highly, highly 5 stars.
Peter was just telling me how surprised he was to realize he had just recently watched the more recent Planet of the Apes movies and said they were so good, and he really liked them and thought I would like them. So I will see. Brendan and I have been meaning to see Godzilla.
Yeah.
So I will
Yeah.
-1. So I will see that.
I
It's
hope it
funny,
comes out in
so
black and
much-
white too, because Darren said black and white is actually scarier for some reason.
That makes sense. I
Yeah.
watched some horror in black and white when I was younger. I agree. There's something very chilling about it.
Yeah.
I have so many, I have so much love for a lot of family movies, like that my family has watched all together, because Griffin's really particular. Like, he doesn't like anything too bloody, but he likes action.
Mhm.
So of course, like the run that Marvel had, that I think you
Yes.
loved too, like that
Yeah.
whole run was spectacular for us. And when COVID hit and he decided he wanted to watch it all in order,
We did
and we
that
were like,
too.
chronological order, or like like when it came out, because there's like 2 different ways to watch it, right?
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, have fun with that, acting like we weren't gonna. And every single one of us at some point like kind of joined in.
Slowly sit down on the couch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then same thing when we were in Maui, in 2020, we at night we'd be like wide awake, after the sun went down, and we watched the Harry Potter movies, we rewatched the Lord of the Rings movies. It was like we got into those series.
Yeah.
We watched the Star Wars movies. So like those have been well supported by my family. And I really liked seeing the settings of Lord of the Rings when we were in New
Yeah.
Zealand the way we did. That was cool. But in general, I really want to get back into, like, I do try to, like, with a friend. Like, I love to go see films that are at the local theater that isn't like the blockbuster films. I love to see independent films. It's something I don't do enough of. So
Yeah. When you said the thing about books to movies, Harry Potter was interesting for me because I had seen all of the movies up until the final 2, and then I read the books. And so the books for me were even more fun because, like, I could imagine everything. And then of course the books expand on all of this. So then I read the final book, which then turned into the 2 final movies. And where I had loved all the movies before that, those last 2 movies I was so disappointed. There were so many things in the book that I wanted to see in the movie.
Yes.
That they touched on, specifically the Snape stuff, that
Yes.
I was just so disappointed. And I thought, Okay, that's the first time I could really remember thinking I read the book before the movie and I
I mean,
wished.
that's the thing is like we with Peter, Brendan and I would get two copies. We would order two copies because we didn't want to wait for the other one to read it. So we would read, before he was born and then once he was born and catching up
Yeah.
with it, like we would read them like, right through with him. But yes, we didn't have kids and we were reading them
A
at
lot of people
first.
did.
But there was a disappointment all the way through sometimes. Not always. I mean, like you definitely fall in love with like the actors they chose and stuff.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
they did well with that, but there's so many things that you're hoping will come out on the screen that they just choose not to. That's hard. I was learning that from Peter and Brendan about Dune 2.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
And because I don't think I finished that book. I can't remember. Maybe I
Well,
did, but I just
Dune is Dune 1 and 2. And then
exactly.
like these other
But
ones
like
that are coming out, very few
when I
people have
saw
even read the books.
Dune, I even though I remember it being confusing to read and I found it confusing to watch, I remembered a lot of it.
Yeah,
Dune 2, I really enjoyed.
I
I
did too.
know I and like Peter and I were just talking about that there was a lot of things they altered, but they like kind of hit like we were just having the conversation about how sometimes they do that really well and sometimes they don't when they
Yeah.
take artistic license, and they did well because the acting was good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that speaks to, but again, yeah, that was the thing. I was wishing I had seen the movies before read the book for those last two, because that's what I loved is I'd seen the movies and then it was like I got extra when I read the book versus the contraction when you read the book and then it goes into the movie, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Um
excited about Inside Out
yeah.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
love
love that movie.
it. I always think I'm gonna rewatch the animated films that I loved. I don't,
I mean, we
but
we
I
watched
love
him
them.
so much when we were little, like uh although yet literally just the other day Darren was working from home and he had Big Hero 5 on. I was like, what are you? But The Incredibles for us, man, that
Incredible,
was
so
that
good,
was just that was one of the definite.
so
We
good.
saw so many shitty kids movies that when we saw something like The Incredibles, man, we glommed onto that with every fiber of our being because it was like, oh, this is a good one.
I've definitely seen that and Cars
Yep.
because that was Griffin's obsession more times than I ever thought I would see anything. And I'm trying to think of there was like, oh well, recently I've seen Trolls 3, like boys like band together or Trolls band together
Yeah,
because Griffin loves it.
that's awesome.
Um, yeah, he's a big pop music fan, so
Yeah.
it's just been on in my periphery, or I've just like given in and watched it, and I can't say I hate it.
Yeah. I would
And
say
I
the
can't
only
drink
thing
in them. And
mine's a
the thing that
completely,
gets under your skin, and then you like it.
yeah. No, I get it. I'm trying to think. There's probably what's the only thing that pops into my head that I seemingly have rewatched quite a bit recently because it's Charlotte's into it is Sex and the City, the first movie.
Ah,
The rest of the movies blow, but that I could sit down and watch the first movie over and over again, no question. It's just I
wait,
love it.
you saw the Fall Guy and didn't love it, right? Because I
I'm
haven't seen it yet, and I've been wondering if I should go see it.
I mean, to me, it is it, in theory, it should be a movie you want to see on the big screen because it's the big, big blockbuster thing. I no, I didn't love it. It was fine. I didn't hate it, but I also was in a lot of pain. So
Mm.
let's speak. And I knew that leaving. I thought it was really close to my surgery. So I was at a point where sitting for any amount of time was so uncomfortable for me. So my whole leg was just like on fire. So maybe had I seen it post surgery, I'd feel differently. I love Ryan Gosling. I love Emily Blunt. I'm sure it was fine. I didn't, I was like, okay, fine. You know,
Yeah,
but I do love Ryan Gosling.
yeah, I did love him. Did you see the new color purple?
I know that's what I was saying earlier. I have not,
Oh
but
no, you
I
haven't. Okay,
will.
sorry.
I will. I
Yeah.
think because I hear it's fantastic.
And did you say I loved the holdovers so much?
I have not seen that. We keep talking about watching that one of these nights, and I have not seen that one yet. The,
I would say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say my favorite movie. I was gonna change the subject, so if you're gonna talk about the holdovers, go ahead.
Nope, I
Okay.
wasn't.
My favorite movie that I saw in that whole Oscar genre, even though I did like Oppenheimer and I loved Barbie, is like the biggest delightful surprise to me was American Fiction. I really enjoyed it.
We just saw that 2 weeks ago. I thought American Fiction was amazing.
The
We loved it.
acting, I once I saw that, I was like, I don't know why Sterling Brown didn't win like
I
that.
agree.
I
Well,
mean,
he's not in
doesn't
it. He's not in it as much as I thought he was going to be. I have
true.
such a tender spot in my heart for Jeffrey Wright from
I
when
love Jeffrey
being in
Wright.
Basquiat. And it was so
Mhm.
funny because when the movie first came on, Darren said, God, is that like his voice is so different from what we remember in Basquiat? And I said, well, I think if you have ever heard Basquiat speak, he did a very good job of sounding like Jean-Michel. But then there were just a couple of times in American Fiction, and I can't even, but they were just little moments, the way he would say something. And I'd look at Darren, I was like, that sounded like him. you know, I love Jeffrey Wright. I thought that movie was so good. Some unexpected pieces to it for sure. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Yes, highly
I
recommend.
yeah, I like the surprises in it a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Um,
I was
and
just
my
like,
other
oh, didn't see
so
that coming.
so when we were talking thinking about doing this, and I was like, okay, what am I looking forward to? Not much, but what do I remember loving from last year besides the obvious? Those three movies, and the one you turned me on to that turned out to be one of Miles's favorites is Theater Camp.
Yeah. yeah.
So good,
So good.
so good.
Yeah, that's a classic. I think, I mean, that's to me is going to be one of those movies that gets funnier as time goes on. And if you have a theater kid, as I do, like there was so much of it when we watched it with Charlie. We'd like something would happen on screen. We'd look at her and she'd just shake her head and be like, yep, that's exactly right. And
I love
Booksmart. I
that.
mean, that's an oldie, a goodie,
Oh,
but
but
talk about a
smart.
movie I could sit down and watch every single day of the year is Booksmart.
I'm gonna re-listen to this and like make a list so that we can post about it because this
Yeah,
is I
that's a good
love all
idea.
of this stuff. Oh yeah, and this one, and this one. It's good because I don't know if everyone goes through this, but I have a million things I want to see and things I want to rewatch and show the kids, and then I blank
Yeah,
when someone asks, and so I try to keep a list on my phone.
it's a good idea.
That used to be much more of a thing because it was like when I get to the Red Box or when I get to Blockbuster, I got to
Yes.
remember this. But now we're so desensitized and we have everything like we might just I can't sleep. I'm gonna watch this by myself. Like we don't make a thing of it anymore, and so it's hard to remember that we saw it. It's
Yeah,
just that
no, I agree.
I can see it. I just haven't seen it yet. That kind of thing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I
I
think
have
that's a great idea to make a list and we'll put it out on our
I
socials.
I feel like no offense to the actors in it because I saw it because I love you in it, but one of the worst movies I've seen in the last decade by far. Like please give me those 2 hours back was Wonder Woman 1984 or
Or
whatever that was.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
My
because Wonder
kid, like,
Woman was so good.
Griffin is so committed to all DC and Marvel in such a loyal way that it was Christmas. Brendan had to work Christmas, and the boys and I were watching it with him, and Miles snuck away, and Peter and I were texting each other watching this, like mean things about Miles. Like, I can't believe he left us here watching.
That's hilarious. Well, we could
Yeah.
probably go on and on because I can imagine that we would just trigger each other with oh and this,
Yeah.
oh and this, and oh and this. But we were thinking of a song to put, and we already talked about how iconic John Hughes was for us Gen Xers. So I think you picked the perfect song for this week.
Okay. I could probably read all the lyrics or just sing it, but I promise I won't sing it. That would be mean. But it's Don't You, and then in parentheses, Forget About Me by Simple Minds, a band we both loved in the 80s. And it's
Yep.
just hearing it gives you chills because you can
Yeah.
picture it. It starts, hey, 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 hey. Ooh. Ooh, whoa. Won't you come see about me? I'll be alone, dancing. You know it, baby. Tell me your troubles and doubts, giving everything inside and out, and love strange. So real in the dark, think of the tender things that we were working on. Slow change may pull us apart when the light gets into your heart. Baby, don't you forget about me.
So good. You may know this, but Brian Ferry was originally supposed to do that, and he turned it down. And it's on one hand, I think I cannot imagine anybody but Simple Minds doing that song. And then I said that to Darren one time, and he was like, but if you really listen to it, again, you'd have to be a Brian Ferry fan, which we both are. You can hear where Brian Ferry could have done it. Those are very Brian Ferry lyrics in some ways. But to
I
me,
thought Simple Minds wrote it.
No, no, I forget who wrote it, but it was written for Brian
Okay.
Ferry to do, and he turned
Ah,
it down for whatever reason. And thank God, because I cannot imagine anybody but Simple Minds doing that song. And yeah, and then of course the iconic arm with
you
from
know, I actually have it. I went thrifting with my kids. I found a tank top that's
you.
entirely
I
too
saw
tight, so I
that.
wear it to bed. And it's like it's
I
that
love that.
fist in the air. Yay! And by
Well,
the
that was a
time
fun one.
we air this, we will have. And we didn't even talk documentaries. We both watch and love a lot of documentaries.
Ooh, maybe we should
Um,
do that next
oh,
week and then
I
end with
know.
music.
Tonight we're gonna both probably end up watching Bratz. So, all
Yeah,
right.
definitely want to watch that. Yeah, let's do that. We're
Okay.
making a on-air decision. We'll talk about documentaries next week, and then we can do music for the final week of July. How's that sound?
I love it.
Okay, that's what we're doing
All
then.
right.
Easy peasy.
All right. Thank you for
Well, you
listening.
guys, as always, share your movies that you love. Because again, we said this about books and TV shows. We're giving you a list of our faves, but we would love for you to share on our socials your favorite books, movies, TV shows, documentaries, music, as we drop each one of these in July.
Yes. And as this airs, maybe we'll have watched some more. We can let you know.
Yep.
This is our version of Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I love it.
All right.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back next week.
Bye bye.